their kids. Now today, although schools generally are desegregated, though there's evidence of resegregation taking place, the content of education remains separate and unequal. And I would argue then that the achievement gap is fundamentally a curriculum gap. Black children are disproportionately tested on material that they never have been taught. Segregated education under school desegregation operates primarily through the mechanism of racialized tracking within schools. So consider, for example, Columbia High School in Maplewood, New Jersey. In 2005, the school had over 2,000 students and the following racial ethnic composition. 58% of the students were black, 35% were white, 4% were Latino, and 3% were Asian. The school assigned students to mathematics classes ranging from levels 2 through 5, with 2 as the lowest tier and 5 as the highest tier. Close to 90% of the students in level 2 math were black, while close to 80% of the students in level 5 math were white. Now this pattern, I would argue, is a long-term outcome of a process of systematic undereducation of black students following the Brown decision via the mechanism of educational tracking. In the mid-1960s, when the District of Columbia's public schools still had a racially mixed student population, compelling evidence emerged that curriculum and student classroom assignments were being structured to miseducate black children deliberately. Black children were labeled uneducable due to cultural deprivation or an alleged tendency to learn more slowly than other children because they were from broken or unwed homes or their parents spent long hours away from that home at work. Black children were viewed as too often being so hopelessly handicapped that a great number of them are not ready to be exposed to normal tools of knowledge offered a typical first grader. So, a presumption of black cognitive inferiority was being embedded into the operations of the school system from the point when black children first began school. The contradiction with the history of the black march toward literacy and learning was transparent for one critic of the DC schools who said the following: if cultural deprivation and economic underprivileged conditions were the bar to literacy as maintained, Negroes would not have made the progress they did during the latter half of the 19th century. Who among them had parents who were literate? That number was few indeed. If broken or unwed homes constitutes the barrier to learning, as proclaimed today, there would have been no need or demand for education of Negroes in the South following emancipation, for broken homes or the unwed condition was the rule, not the exception. But Negroes, however they were conceived, did learn and still learn whether they have an intact home or not. So what happened in the District of Columbia in the 1960s? A track system was introduced, ability grouping, where students were placed in basic, general, regular, or honors tracks. The basic track was for students identified as mentally retarded and was a wholly remedial curriculum. The general track was a technical training curriculum for students who did not intend to pursue higher education after high school. The regular and honors tracks were for the college-bound, with the honors track offering the most challenging curriculum. There were negligible numbers of black students in either of the two upper tracks in the mixed schools, and their presence was disproportionately lower in the schools with majority black student bodies. Moreover, in the district school system, up-tracking, moving from lower to a higher track, was very rare, while down-tracking was commonplace. Not only were the numbers of students in the basic and general tracks rising, but so were the numbers of dropouts. Black students were increasingly testing poorly in the system, but it was apparent that their poor test performance was because, under the structure of the track system, they had not been taught the material that was being evaluated. Moreover, teachers of black children were being pushed to dilute the content of what they were teaching their pupils. In 1961, a teacher assigned to a junior primary group was warned not to teach her culturally deprived 6-year-olds numbers or the alphabet. Instead, she was told to entertain them rather than give them the first grade course of study. Finally, one of her students stood up after a month of these empty activities and asked when they would start to do what they had come to school to do, learn. The teacher then set about giving them challenging work, to which they took with enthusiasm. At the close of the school year, her class, which had been expected to repeat first grade, in fact, presumably had been engineered to repeat first grade, tested at the second grade level, and her job was in danger. By responding to her students' desires to learn, she had undermined an intended self-fulfilling prophecy. Because of the actions of a citizens' advocacy group seeking to restore quality education in the schools, and concerns expressed by members of the House Appropriations Committee, the teacher was not fired, but her students still had to repeat first grade. Another teacher at a different school was assigned a middle track of a five-section second grade. Her group tested far ahead of the first group, the gifted honors class. She was rebuked for pushing her students and told she must slow their pace of study. After all, they never should have performed ahead of the students in Group 1 since they were in Group 3. There was a strong correlation between a child's family income and his or her assignment to tracks in the system. Lower income children fell into the lower tracks, higher income children rose into the higher tracks. Race, however, was more decisive than class in dictating track assignments. Middle-class black children were liable to be assigned to tracks with negligible academic challenge and also were subjected to being labeled inaccurately as, in the language of the time,